Hey everyone, it's Winnie here back again. So today I have with me another earphone, and this is the Etymotic ER3SE. Now I know I just reviewed the Etymotic ER2XR not too long ago, but I was actually really curious about how these step-up models from Etymotic change the sound. Mostly because Etymotic are mostly well known for their balanced armature drivers, which the ER2 didn't have. The ER2 had a traditional dynamic driver, so I wanted to get the sort of classic Etymotic sound, but I also didn't want to pay, or in Australia, the ER4 can cost around $600 something. I mean, it's cheaper on Amazon, around $450, but it's still really expensive. So basically, I thought I'd pick up the ER3 because I found a really good price on Amazon, and I had a voucher that I could use to reduce the price by an extra $20. So I got this, and I've been comparing it with the ER2XR recently, and my speakers and my headphones, and I find this is a very unique sounding earphone actually in comparison to anything else I've heard, so I'll get into that later. But first I just want to get into what the ER3 is and what the ER3 isn't. I'll start with the driver technology that this uses. This uses a balanced armature driver, and if you're an audiophile, or if you're even remotely into audio, you probably know what that is, but if you're not, I'll just give you a quick rundown. It's basically a really tiny receiver, and it operates on a different principle than dynamic drivers. It doesn't have the same structure as a dynamic driver, and also it's really tiny, and that means that it has a really different sound. It's very clinical sounding actually. It's a very sterile sound, I would say. It's very dry sound, but it's also, I would argue, it's a very accurate sound. It's very true to the source, but your definition of accuracy and a lot of other audiophiles have a different view of accuracy, so we'll have to get into that later. But yeah, the ER3 is a really great earphone actually, and I'll say right off the bat, personally, I prefer this over the ER2. Now, I know a lot of people have said that they prefer the ER2 even over the ER4 series, and I can understand why. The ER2 just sounds more natural, it sounds more speaker-like, it sounds like sound that we're used to hearing in the real world. But the ER3 has its merits, and I'd argue that it's still unique, and it's a really well-tuned earphone in its own right. But okay, I'll get into that later. First, I just like to talk about the design, and we'll get into the sound later. Okay, so first let's talk about the design of this earphone before I get into the sound. It comes in the same exact case as the ER2. Still has the Etymotic logo here. Same, soft case, same zipper style, same Velcro strap inside. Not really anything special. Case is the same, and the earphone design is, the same, to put it bluntly. Same cylinder shells, still made out of aluminium. It's just black in color instead of blue, and also, actually, yeah, that's about it. Actually, in terms of differences, it just has the ER3 there and the serial numbers below. Same deep fit as well. So if you're not used to deep fitting earphones, this might take a while to get used to, but I find the fit very comfortable. They also come with dual flange tips, which you might find more comfortable. But personally for me, I think that they change the sound a bit too much. They add a bit of sibilance, so that's why I don't use them, but you might find that more comfortable. But I have the triple flanges on because I'm used to them, and I personally find that they sound better because the sibilance isn't as pronounced. Yeah, same MMCX connector that's modified. You can't really plug any MMCX connector into here. You might need a special one that's made specifically for earphones like this. I believe that the final, gosh, I can't remember the model name, the F something, that model also has a similar plug that's 90 degrees, so that would fit in this too. But yeah, this can't really accept normal MMCX connectors, so you might need to go through a bit more trouble to find a replacement cable. Speaking of the cable, this cable is same as the ER2. It's sort of thin, not the greatest, not the worst either. I mean, it feels relatively okay. The only thing is that it has microphonics, which is when you rub against your clothes, you can hear it in the earphone. I wish that it was braided or something, or had some coating to deal with that. Unfortunately, it doesn't, so it kind of is what it is. But yeah, that's basically it for the design. Pretty standard Etymotic design. Now, in terms of sound quality, this is where the ER3SE I think stands above the ER2. This is just my personal opinion, by the way, because a lot of people seem to prefer the ER2 these days. I'll just say why I think that the ER3SE sounds better than the ER2. That's because the transient response of this earphone is just so much faster, so much quicker, that it just puts it on another level. And when I say transient response, what I mean is that the impulse, so when you think of a sound wave, it's like an impulse, right? And with the ER3, the impulse basically comes and goes just like that, like really fast, really quick, really snappy. But with a lot of other earphones, Dynamics in particular, the impulse response can be delayed or have some resonance there, or it'll just linger a bit too long, and that gives the sound a bit of a smooth character. But at the same time, I would argue that it's not necessarily a accurate signature, because it's not representing the signal as it is. People say that this sounds even too fast, and that's why a lot of people don't like balanced armatures, because they sound a bit too unnatural to them. It sounds a bit too fast. I can see what they mean, but I also think that it sounds fine, as long as you get used to it. And what you gain is a really good sense of detail and a really good sense of resolution from the bass to the mids to the treble. But yeah, I should basically talk about the frequency response of this earphone first. It's a really flat response. The bass is flat. There is a roll-off at around 50 Hz, but it's not too severe, not too adverse, although it is audible, and I wish that the bass was a bit more extended, but can't really help that being a small balanced armature driver. Especially this doesn't have a vented driver, so it might struggle with the lowest regions of the bass. Bass sounds very tight and clean, but it doesn't have the same punch as a lot of dynamic drivers. So if you're a bass head and if you listen to a lot of hip hop, this is definitely not the earphone for you. But if you listen to like a lot of like rock music or something, then it's pretty good. And it's flat until around 1 kHz, I believe, and then it rises a little bit. There's a sort of emphasis at 2 kHz or 1.8 kHz, which gives female vocals a tingy character, I would say. It's a very slight emphasis, like it just makes them more forward, in the mix, I should say, not tingy, but more forward. There isn't really a ting, because after the mid, it's neutral, but it just dips down a little bit. In comparison to the ER2XR, this has around, I believe, 3 to 5 decibels less of treble, but at the same time, it doesn't really sound like dark to me. So I don't find this earphone as a dark sounding earphone. It sounds still very articulate in treble and very extended to me, but that's just what I hear. I don't know what the difference is, but anyway. So yeah, really flat response, really clean response. I think that a lot of the benefits of this has to do with the driver, because balanced armatures in general tend to sound more faster, more detailed than dynamics, but they do lack that natural resonance in the bass, that natural thump that sounds more natural to a lot of listeners. Pretty much because the balanced armature drivers, they use really small diaphragms, and they can start up and go really quick, but they don't move as much air as dynamic drivers do. So you don't get the same sense of force in the bass as a dynamic driver. You can hear the bass, but you can't necessarily feel it as well as a dynamic driver. But it's really hard to describe unless you've heard what balanced armature earphones sound like. So I'd recommend if you go to audition at first, then that'd be a good way to find out the differences between this and the ER2. I'm just trying to describe what I hear. But yeah, that's basically what I have to say in terms of sound quality. Oh, sorry, I should also mention, in terms of Soundstage, the Soundstage is fine. I don't find it too compressed. A lot of people find that the ER series sounds too compressed in terms of Soundstage, too narrow. In comparison to headphones, of course it is narrow, because you're literally shoving these right inside your ears. But I don't find it exceedingly narrow. I still find that it has a good sense of left and right separation and a good center image. And I don't find that it's directly inside your head, but there is a sort of width to it. Now, it's not a large soundstage by any means, but it's not really narrow. Like, I don't find it fatiguingly narrow. So again, your mileage might vary, but I find that the soundstage in this is generally really good. I mean, not really good, but it's fine. It's sort of average in terms of earphones. So yeah. Alright, so now that we've got the sound and design out of the way, how do I feel about these earphones overall? Well, basically, I feel like the ER3 is just really, it stands out because of the detail that it provides and just the clarity that it provides. This is definitely the most detailed piece of audio equipment that I own. It beats my AKG K712 Pros, it beats my speakers, it beats the ER2XR. I've heard, well, I've actually owned the HD600s before and the Beyerdynamic DT990. It beats those hands down. It's basically one of the cleanest pieces of audio gear that you can actually get at a really good price, and it actually punches far above its price in terms of the detail that it provides, in terms of the clarity, the performance, the impulse response, the transient response. Just everything is just really good. I will say though that it's a bit thin for most people. For critical listening, it works really well, except the bass roll-off obviously hinders that. But yeah, it's just a really nice sounding earphone. I even recommend it for pop music, rock music. The only thing that I think it struggles in is hip hop, and that's not all genres of hip hop. So I still listen to Travis Scott with this, Kanye West, but I do feel like that hip hop is better served on headphones, which do have a bit of more of a kick in the bass, just because you kind of want that in a hip hop recording. Not to say that it sounds bad or unlistenable. It's definitely listenable in this earphone, and it definitely sounds better than a lot of other earphones. I'd still probably take this earphone for hip hop over like a hi-fi IEM, for instance, something from KZ. I don't really like the KZ earphones. I also have the TRN V90. I don't like that one either. It sounds a bit not as defined in the bass, and also a bit zingy in the treble. But yeah, anyway, what I mean to say in summary basically with the ER3 is that it's a really clean sounding earphone. It's a really flat sounding earphone. It's a really accurate sounding earphone. Now, that might not be to your taste. I don't think it's to everyone's taste either. So I recommend that you really want to know what you're getting first before you purchase the ER3. If you're on the fence about getting an Etymotic, I recommend choosing the ER2 series first, just to dip your toes in, not only in terms of the sound but also the fit as well. But yeah, if you want the next step up from the ER2 sound and you want the clarity that Etymotic is known for, I think that you can only find that in the balanced armature drivers, which is the ER3, the ER4 series. But yeah, that's basically my review. So I hope this was useful. You know, I don't really have a script for this, so sorry if it seems a bit rambly at times. You know, I'm trying to work on my improve my performance. Sorry, not performance. I'm trying to improve my speaking. My speaking capabilities. So, you know, you can leave any constructive criticism below. You know, I welcome that. But yeah, I hope this was useful, and yeah, please consider liking and subscribing. As I said before in my previous videos, I am looking to do more reviews of the gear I own and also just talk about audio in general. And if you have any requests of things you want me to listen to, you know, feel free to leave a comment below and I'll see if I can get my hands on it. But yeah, thanks for watching again, and I hope you have a great day or a great night wherever you are, and cheers.